All right. Just checking the stream, making sure everything's all right. I just need to make sure that everything is all right and that we are streaming. Are we going? Is it going right now? It's going. Alright, so today's video is a lesson in excess because it's completely unnecessary. We don't need to do this. But I have chosen to do it because of how awful Mac keyboards are. Today we're taking a look at our RK Kludge, our Kluge, Kludge, whatever you want to call it, RK68, which is a 68% layout of a keyboard, which means that it's all scrunched together. And you can see it right next to a 10 keyless. It is right there. So you split the 10 keyless, get rid of all this extra space, and just get rid of the function keys, push it all down. Alright, so what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be taking this RK68, which comes with, I believe, Otemu Reds. I could be wrong. Let's take a quick look. Who is the... No, these are RK Reds. So, in-house red switch. Here, you can get a sound sample. Stabilizer on the spacebar is not horrible. It's a little loose. It sounds a little bit scratchy, a little bit rattly, but it's a budget board. So this comes in at about $50. You can buy this on Amazon like I did, or you can go to their website and order it, but then you're going to be waiting for shipping. It's a good starter board, and for me, it's just a cheap board that I can throw in the office and not be too worried about a coworker stealing. But what I'm going to be doing to this board today is I'm going to be replacing the switches because this is a hot swap board, which means I don't have to do any soldering, thankfully, which can save me on some time. I'm going to be taking off these keycaps, and I'm going to be replacing those with a custom set, as well as I might add some foam mod to the bottom. I'll be using a pour-on foam at the bottom of this, trying to just dampen down the noise to not be that guy in the office. You know, the one that brings in the mechanical switches and is just extremely loud and obnoxious. I don't want to be that guy. So what I'm doing today is I'll be replacing these red switches with Acco silver switches. They're linear switch, which means they're going to be quiet. They don't have a bump or click, and I may or may not be lubing them, depending on how it sounds stock. It might be a future video. I might be doing that in a future video. But this is just kind of a casual stream for me, just trying to justify purchasing this keyboard for my office work that I will be doing. It's not too much money to justify, $50, but with all the mods that I have purchased for it, it reached more towards the 112. So we'll see how far we can take this budget keyboard. No. Slipped right off. This isn't meant to be a crazy keyboard build. This is just trying to be the least distracting possible in the office while still not having a terrible keyboard. And if you guys are interested, coming up soon I will be doing a video on my Samsung Galaxy Ion, the Galaxy Book Ion that I purchased last year. Right now we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of me using it, which means that I can give you my 1-year review on that laptop. So look for that video coming up soon. I'll be tearing it down. I'll probably be checking the thermal paste on it, even though that isn't necessary until about the 2nd year of use. I would like to check to see how it is held up and see if you guys would also get any benefit for doing that yourselves. I know I've talked on my last video with a few of the viewers, and they said that their Galaxy Book Ions were a different model. So I got a late model Galaxy Book Ion. It had twin fans, which is uncommon for that laptop. Usually they only come with a single fan, which I found interesting. Since the last video, it has been updated to Windows 11. Whether you like that or not, I was doing it for testing purposes. So far, I don't really have any complaints about Windows 11 that many people have been saying. I think it's just one of those things where if you got used to one thing and you switched, you're unlikely to like the new thing because it's just new and different. Some people, they do not like change, they're change resistant, and that just, it just scares them sometimes. Ooh, shout out. Hey. The stream's only going to be for about an hour because I have something to do after this, but I will be planning on getting through the switches at least. I may or may not have time to lube them. I don't think lubing will be in this video. I think this one's just going to be stock for stock. Just seeing what the different switches make, and then possibly doing the keycaps in this video. The pour-on foam will be another video I will be doing, because that one you have to measure and cut and find the holes. I want to do that correctly. I do not want to rush that one. Hey! Getting a little too excited trying to take this all apart. Starting throwing stuff. Oh, so it looks like I was right. The stabilizers are lubed from the factory. They have a generous amount in there. You won't be able to see it on camera, but I can guarantee you that RK68 from factory comes with factory lube, which makes it a little bit more difficult because I plan on replacing it with my Crytox equivalent. So I haven't sprung for Crytox on this build because I had some that's left over that I would like to use up before I get Crytox. Because Crytox grade 0, 20 weight grade 0. I believe it's the big one that we all go for. Well, it's not terribly expensive. It isn't. It's still an expense, and I still have to justify this one. Couldn't put it on a company expense report. So let's see how easy it is to take these out without scratching the faceplate. This one's difficult because it's right up against the edge. Okay, not too hard. Believe it is, oh, it's 5-pin. The only thing I will say is that this is a north-facing LED, which means that if you're trying to run standard cherry keycaps, you might run into some of that interference with the keycaps because the size of the keycap might cause interference because of the LED placement. All that does is change the sound so that some of your keys might not sound all uniform, which some people find extremely distracting, others don't even notice it at all, so your mileage may vary on that one. The keycap set this seems to be double shot, cheap double shot, ABS, I believe. Doesn't feel like PBT, feels like ABS. It's gonna get greasy if you use it for a long time, which is fine because this is a budget board. You have to take into account the budget portion of that. It was only $50. They stretched that $50. Okay, once I get off this top row, it should be easier going from here. So these are those RK reds. Believe they are a variant of the Kale reds, but I might be wrong. It may be Otemu reds, but I don't think that these ones are an Otemu variant. I think that these ones are their in-house switch, which is probably just another clone, just like the Otemus were of the cherries and the Kales were of the other ones. It all comes around. The thing about clones, though, is that for a period of time, the clones were actually higher quality than the originals because of just how the newness of molds works. So, don't discount the Switch. It's a personal preference thing. I just don't typically prefer red switches. the stabilizers are lubed. I don't think that these switches are lubed from the factory. They feel just a wee bit too scratchy for that. But there you go. There's the board, completely keyless. Now let's see if I can get... Where did I put my tool? I wonder if I can get it with this. Oh, so they even put foam inserts between here to prevent any interference. It's interesting for a budget board. Usually this is just open. I do think that they are reusing one of their top plates for this. It is a bolt down face variant. It's not a gasket mount, this one. Although they do put isolation foam in between the plate and the motherboard, which is extremely interesting. And if you look down, there is a tiny bit, small amount of foam underneath the motherboard. You can see it through the key switches, but it's like, I don't know if you guys can see it, but like right down there in that little center hole, you can see that there is foam there and how it is black. And there's the wire for your battery, because this is the Bluetooth model. And I don't know if I can angle this for you guys, but here there's foam insert, and in between the sockets there is also foam inserts. It's a very interesting budget board. Would I recommend this to beginners? Absolutely. It's a hot swap board, which means that you can have the freedom to do what I'm about to do. And since it's $50, you can probably buy it for a beginner getting into this and not feel too guilty about it. But here is what I am replacing it with. This is an Acco Silver switch. It has a 45 gram weight actuation, and it is a linear switch, but it has the box stabilizer on the top. See, I don't know if it's going to get in focus, but box stabilizer. So instead of these ones, the RK switches, which are red and do not have the box stabilization, this one does. So here, red, silver, red, silver. So it has a much nicer actuation than the RK Reds, but it might be a little bit louder, which is where this foam's going to come in handy. So all you have to do for hot swap is line up the 2 pins with the 2 hot swap pins right there, and then you put it in. Since this one has the 5-pin orientation, if your switch had pins or stabilization here, you wouldn't have to clip them. So this is compatible with just about every switch. This one does not have the stabilizer pins, so you don't have to worry about that. This will be compatible with any board. My other board up here only has the 3-pin configuration, so that would be the stabilizer here and the 2 pins. So if you did have those stabilizer pins, you would have to clip them for this board, but not for the RK one, which is an advantage, because these are both budget boards. Since this one was a $50 board and this one was a $60 board, it comes down to what you're going for, I believe. I liked the aesthetic of that one more because it's a smoky plastic enclosure. So it kind of gave me N64 vibes. Which brought me back to my N64 clear controllers, and I just love that look. It's not for everyone, but it is a definitely unique look. So this is in RK68, which means that there are 68 keys, which means that we have to replace 68 of these switches. And this is a build that just about anyone can do. I would say that even children can do keyboard builds, but it's just a matter of time, money, like any hobby. It's just time and money, and then just willingness to try new things. Because at first it seems very scary, like you're dealing with electrical components, and even like you might see some videos where you see soldering guns being taken out, and it gets very, very intimidating. But I would say that once you start doing it and doing it safely, it is a rewarding experience. The problem is that because it is rewarding and it is an experience, you'll never look at stock keyboards the same, which is why it's a very rabbit hole-esque hobby, which is why, like, I see the boards at my work and I touch them and I do not like the way that they feel because I know better now. So it's like it's the allegory of the cave, where you don't know that you're in the cave until you've been exposed to what the cave is. So if you've done, believe it was freshman literature, you might be familiar with the allegory of the cave. But the allegory of the cave was a Plato thought experiment where people were thrown into a cave and they had never experienced what the outside world was like. They were just stuck in the bottom of the cave. And all they could see, from the limited light that they were given, were shadows on the wall. Now, to the people in the bottom of this cave, the shadows on the wall were about as real as the people sitting across from them, because they couldn't see very well. But once they got exposed, they got brought out of that level of only seeing the shadows. They started to realize that the shadows were just shadows, and that they weren't actually real. That's how I feel about custom keyboards, is that those basic keyboards that you start out with, those are the shadows. You know, you get your stock keyboards that come with the computer, and they might feel alright. They might be functional, but they're not exactly what I would consider high quality. They just were cheap for cheap's sake. Then, once you get up from there, you start doing your budget boards. This is where you get those $40 to $50 mechanical keyboards, and like most people, you start out with the clickiest switches possible. I know, I see you guys out there with the blue switches. I was once one of you. I have since moved on, and now I like linear and tactile switches are my two go-tos now, but to each their own. If you want to be the loudest person in the room, keeping everyone up at night, doing gaming, blue switches are for you. If you just want to feel the switch and hear the clacking of the keycap against the metal backplate, you go for linear switches. But if you want to feel when the key is actuated without having to hear a click bar from a blue switch, you go with a tactile switch. Tactile switches can be a little bit noisier than linear switches, but typically I don't notice a big difference. So I'm just putting these ones away. I like to be neat. Just because I'm doing this fast does not mean that it has to be messy. It's a very interesting build, and if you've seen my builds before, this board is going very straightforward compared to the last couple of builds. Oh, check that out. Let's see the stabilization of this. The housing is not very good on these ones. You can see that it moves back and forth inside of its own housing, which leads me to believe that these ones are very cheaply made and just meant to be starting keys, which is nothing wrong with that. They serve their purpose. They did what they set out to do, which is also where they get that rattly noise from. The other ones that I just replaced them with do not have that because they come with that box switch. It's very stabilized, and you don't hear it as much. Now, if you really want to go extremely stabilized, if you need to go extremely stabilized, the next step in switch modification, which would be filming them. Now, if I wanted to keep these RK Reds, I would put them into, I would take them apart with an opener like this. So I take the opener, let's see, these use the bar switch. They are Kale, they're Kale style. So you pop it open, just push it down. You can use a screwdriver. I would recommend not doing it with a screwdriver because that's how you can damage them. This one is not wanting to cooperate. That's the other thing you get with these budget switches, is they're not very mod friendly. Here, I'll do it with a different one. See if this one goes better. Yeah, that sounded better. Okay. So the next mod, besides lubing, which lubing on these switches, you lube the sides, the bar here and the bar here. And then you can also lube the stem to prevent spring noise. You don't lube the bars, these things that jut out from them, in everything else except for linear switches. So linear switches, you can lube these front bars and it will not change too much of the way that your switch operates. It'll be a little bit smoother, the actuation will be faster, but it can change the sound if you overlube them. With everything else, tactile, clicky, what's the other one that we have? We have tactile and clicky for now. You do not lube these stems because then you will not have a tactile or clicky switch after that. You will have a linear switch because you got rid of its clicking function or its tactile bump. So what I was talking about for stability was you would add a film in between the housing top layer and the housing bottom layer. So you would put it in between, and now I just have to reassemble it. You would sandwich it right in between the top housing and the bottom housing, and then you would add that film layer and you would put it back together. I have this backwards. And then you would put it in between this, so then it would not be as rattly. Alright, now for the rest of them. And I just think that it looks a little bit nicer with just the colors. The silver switches, they just look very nice on a white keyboard. Oh, I think this is going to sound wonderful. Okay, so it's a little bit louder, but sounds different. I'm not sure if lubing these would actually make them better. I can try. I'll do it in a different video, but because they are unlubed from the factory. And these are stock for stock. Another way to improve the sound of a keyboard is you put it on a mouse mat, which is what my desk has. It covers the whole desk. But if your desk does not have it, I highly suggest getting a whole desk mat for the improvement of sound of your keyboard. Yeah, that's much better. Oh, than the stock ones. And you see key wobble is a lot better too. Key wobble is what these boxes help with. They prevent key wobble. Now, you don't have to have boxes to make the key wobble go away. It's just that you need a tighter tolerance on your stem, which is the thing holding the keycap on, the crossbar. The problem is that I bought budget switches, so the tolerances on budget switches are a lot wider than tolerances on the expensive ones, the premium switches. So to ensure that I don't have that wobbling problem, I get the bars. Now hear the difference. This one might be a little bit, yeah, that one's broken. That's the other thing about budget switches. You might get one that just isn't right. Yeah. I don't think that one's actuating correctly. So it sounds pretty good. Now for the part that all the young ones will like, the pretty lights. Alright, lights up. Tries to connect automatically with my system. Let's see. Is connected, I think. Let's test this out. Now, I'm not the fastest typer, so we shall see. And I'm doing it over Bluetooth, so I got 49 words per minute with an accuracy of 94%. Not the greatest, but it's also about what I would do. So here, let's try it with my other board. I disconnect this one, and I'll try it with my board that I normally type on, see if that makes a difference. Let's try this again. .42 with 86, but that's also because I'm not using my wrist rest, which I know is not the best thing for you, but it is what it is. So, back to the star of the show, RK68. Would I recommend this for budget builds? Absolutely. This is a perfect starter keyboard to get you into the game and also allow you to have a Bluetooth and wired, which is USB-C, which is rare on these budget builds. Well, increasingly less rare, but originally it was pretty rare. I like this keyboard. Now, the layout does take some getting used to. Everything's a little bit more cramped and compact. So, fair warning, you are going to have to relearn how to type on this. But I will say it is increasingly, and I encourage more people to get into the mechanical keyboard hobby because it is very rewarding and it's something that brings a community together. As you've seen, lots of these keyboard typing tests have sprung up. Even Markiplier is doing them now. But the keyboard swaps, the keyboard collabs that you see on there, there's people like Click and Switch Galarce's, what's his name? I forget what his name is, but the big ones, of course, are Click and Switch, Galarce's, and Squashy Boy, and then there's a few others that all do that collab. Just look up keyboard collab videos and you will see that they all do a wonderful job. Now, is mine as close as theirs? I would say so, but I am personally biased. I will definitely be doing more with this keyboard like I've done with my other keyboards, because at this one this one I am going to document. I'm going to make sure that you all see what I am doing with these, and I am going to just keep in mind this is going into an office, so I'm trying to keep it as least obnoxious as possible. So if you are like me and cannot stand the Dell, Apple, or HP, whatever keyboards that offices have, and your office allows you to bring in your own, check this board out. Give it a shot, and I'm going to show you how to modify this until it is a less obnoxious keyboard. It's still mechanical, it still makes more noise than those ever will, but let's see how quiet we can get this one, and let's see how well this will work for an office. Thank you guys for watching. I will have this archived on the stream will be posted on the channel. It'll just take a few hours to days depending on how YouTube is feeling like it wants to treat me. So wish you all a good one. I hope that you watched this video, and I hope that it was helpful. Hope that you had just as much fun as I did, and I hope that you all have a wonderful